Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our closing remarks. We are really excited to have Dr. Andre Perry with Brookings joining us today. Before I tell you a little bit about Dr. Perry, I just want to take a moment to thank the Catalyst staff that have been working really hard to put this three-day summit together, with special shout outs for Carolina and Ideal. Thank you to you and your tech team and the planning team for putting together an amazing three-day lineup. So now I'm very happy to tell you a little bit more about Dr. Andre Perry. He's a senior fellow in the Metropolitan Policy Program at Brookings and a scholar in residence at American University. He's the author of the book, Know Your Price, Valuing Black Lives and Property in America's Black Cities. He's a nationally known and respected commentator on race, structural inequality, and education. He's a regular contributor to MSNBC and has been published by the New York Times, The Nation, The Washington Post, TheRoot.com, and CNN.com. His research focuses on race and structural inequality, education, and economic inclusion. Dr. Perry's recent scholarship at Brookings has analyzed Black majority cities and institutions in America, focusing on valuable assets worthy of increased investment. Since COVID-19 pandemic began, Perry has documented the underlying causes for the outsized number of coronavirus-related deaths in Black communities. His research has illuminated how certain forms of social distancing historically accelerated economic and social disparities between Black people and the rest of the country. Perry also mapped racial inequities in housing, income, and health to underscore how policy discrimination makes Black Americans more vulnerable to COVID-19. His research has spotlighted the struggles of Black businesses, including artists and art institutions, restaurants, and barbershops and beauty salons, as they await federal relief from COVID-19's economic impact. In education, he explained how college campus closings put housing insecure students at risk during the pandemic. He's also written on the unrealized value of teachers' work that's been made apparent by COVID-19 and has commented on the potential loss of Black teachers as a result of an impending recession. Thank you so much, Dr. Perry, for joining us this afternoon.
Hello, and well, thank you, Gretchen, for that introduction. And I want to thank the entire Catalyst Miami organization and family for this wonderful opportunity to present to you. If you guys don't mind, I'm actually going to jump right in to my presentation. So just give me a few moments to share my screen and we'll get right into it. Hopefully you can see my screen, and the title of my presentation, Worthy of Investment, the Devaluation of Assets in Black Communities. And please, somebody alert me if you don't see me, my slides changing or if something is going on. A lot of the information that I will present to you today can be found in my new book, Know Your Price, Valuing Black Lives and Property in America's Black Cities. At the Brookings Institution, I study Black majority cities and neighborhoods, areas where the census tracts are, where the share of the Black population is greater than 50%. And as you can see, there are a lot of Black majority cities throughout the United States. There are more than 1,200, and they're all here on this map. I do study Black majority neighborhoods, but there's too many to put on a map that would be too congested to look at. But the point here is to identify the assets, the housing, the infrastructure, the transportation systems that are valuable but are devalued by racism. And I demonstrate that through a lot of my research on housing, which provides sort of a way of looking at devaluation in our communities. And so let me proceed with this presentation. Well, it's like a lot of good stories. start at home, so will this one. This is where I grew up. This is 1320 Hill Avenue in Wilkinsburg, Pennsylvania. Wilkinsburg is a small Black municipality surrounded by Pittsburgh on 3 sides. As you can see, the home is abandoned. It's in it's in disrepair. The roof is bowed. It certainly has leaks all over the place. You can own the home essentially by agreeing to pick up the taxes from the municipality. Now, I'm actually the cute one on the left, but that home, which is essentially worth $0, is worth so much more to me, because that woman in the upper right-hand corner, that's Elsie Boyd. I call her Mom. As the story was told to me when I was a child, Mom made a deal with my maternal grandmother that she would take me in because my mother at the time was poor. She was young. She was 15 when she had my older brother. She was 17 when she had me. And she needed help. At the time, Pittsburgh was going through an economic transformation. U.S. Steel was pulling out of the city. You started to see the decline of Westinghouse. And so, as most people know, when white people catch a cold, Black people catch pneumonia or COVID or whatever you want to say. But the hardships were real for people in Pittsburgh. And as you can see, she took in more kids beside me. I stayed from birth till I graduated from high school, but she took in kids, Black kids, white kids, mixed race kids from all over the city for varying durations. Some would stay a few weeks, some would stay a few months, others like me would stay till we graduated. One of the reasons why is this is my father. He, Floyd Criswell was incarcerated. He was in and out of prison. He had a heroin addiction. He probably abused my mother, but he was killed a day before his 27th birthday in a prison outside of Detroit. Now, when I was researching my book, Know Your Price, I actually wanted to get a sense of how he lived and how the woman who raised me, Mom, lived. So I started by looking at home prices in Black neighborhoods. And as you can see on this chart, on the x-axis, that's the percent of Black people in a census tract. And on the top of the bars, an indication of the y-axis, you can see the price of homes in those census tracts. And you can see this is a pretty linear phenomenon. As the percent of Black people increase in a neighborhood, the home prices decrease. Now, a lot of people know that, or they assume that, but a lot of people will also assume that this price difference or this price decrease is a direct result of education or crime, and other excuses people give. But those are things you can control for in a study. And that's what we did looking at in this examination of home prices. We took that price difference, the price, but then we controlled for the structural characteristics of the home, because we wanted to get a sense of price from the same 2-bedroom homes, the same size, same amenities of the home. But then we controlled for neighborhood amenities. So we controlled for education, crime, walkability, all those fancy Zillow metrics. Because again, we wanted to get an apples to apples comparison between homes in Black neighborhoods and homes in white neighborhoods. And what we found pretty much astounds that homes in Black neighborhoods are underpriced by 23%, about $48,000 per home. Again, these are the same homes, similar social circumstances. 23%, $48,000 per home. Accumulatively, that's $156 billion in lost equity, $156 billion. And this is occurring all throughout the United States. Wherever you see a purple dot, that's where devaluation is occurring. Wherever you see a a green dot, that's where home prices in the area are actually priced higher than their white counterparts. I'm actually going to, I did not do this and I apologize, I usually do this, but to get this, what Miami is in the area. And so I will tell you that right away. You can all go to the devaluation of assets in Black neighborhoods website, and you can see, but I'm looking here, the difference in Miami neighborhoods and Black neighborhoods versus white neighborhoods is 20%, about 41,000 per home. So 20%, 40,000 per home. And you can see that's going on all across the country, including Miami Metro. The Lynchburg, Virginia difference, 81% difference, 81%. Rochester, 65%. Jacksonville, 47%. There are, again, some places that Black neighborhoods are actually priced higher. Homes are priced higher than white neighborhoods. Nashville, +10. Wichita Falls, +16. Boston, believe it or not, +23. But I just want to be clear, Boston is no less racist than Lynchburg, but home prices are indeed higher. I'm going to skip that, but I want to put this 156 billion in perspective. 156 billion. What does that mean? We know that 156 billion, a part of that would have gone to municipalities to fund infrastructure, education, policing, all of those different things, because municipalities use tax money generated from the price of homes. But I just, again, want to put this 156 billion in perspective. It would have financed more than 4.4 million Black-owned businesses based on the average amount that Blacks use to start up their firms. It would have financed more than 8 million four-year degrees based on the average amount of a public four-year education. It would have replaced the pipes in Flint, Michigan nearly 3,000 times over, covered nearly all of Hurricane Katrina damage, and has doubled the annual economic burden of the opioid crisis. The reason why I put that in there, particularly the opioid crisis, when I followed where my father lived in Detroit and in Pittsburgh, he lived in areas where there was significant housing devaluation. And so clearly, someone else killed him. Another inmate killed him. He died around 7 a.m., probably in his sleep, single stab wound to the heart. But what I always say after doing this research, that housing devaluation was an accomplice. If he lived in a white neighborhood where homes were at market rate, he would have had better opportunities to, for school, to go to college, to start a business, had better infrastructure. All of those things help shape your life's trajectory. So we know that there are policies and practices. We know that from that 23% difference on average, we know that there are wealth extractors taking money from Black neighborhoods, really because of race. This is why I say there's nothing wrong with Black people that ending racism can't solve. It's on my t-shirt, if you can see it here. By the way, you can get a t-shirt from Bailiwick Clothing. They'll put it in the chat. But there's a harmful practice that when something goes wrong in Black neighborhoods, we point to the people and say, that's because of home training. We are constantly blaming Black people for the conditions in Black majority neighborhoods. When in fact, there's been a number of policies that have led to wealth extraction that predicts for impoverished communities. So I want to show you the denial of racism and how it manifests itself. This is Representative Al Green of Texas. I got to testify to the House Financial Services Committee on appraisals. Now, we do know that in all aspects of the housing market, there's discrimination, from appraisals to real estate agent behavior, to lending practices. We know historically the impact of discrimination, particularly anti-Black discrimination, that has robbed Black people of billions of dollars. We have the evidence of this. But take a look at this exchange between Representative Al Green and my counterparts and myself in this committee hearing.
If you think Black people are being discriminated when their property is being appraised, would you kindly raise your hand? One person on the panel. If you think that, for fear that I'm not communicating well, if you think that Black people are not being discriminated against when their property is being appraised, if you think they're not being discriminated against, kindly raise your hand. Okay, hands now, we're getting some consternation, I see.
Okay, so again, we cannot put our heads in the sand to racism. I mean, we have the evidence. The evidence is clear. The question is, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to restore the value that's being extracted by racism in everyday mundane life? I wanted to show you another facet of this devaluation in business, because most people start their businesses using the equity in their home. So if you don't have equity in a home, it's less likely you'll start a business. It's less likely your community will have the kind of businesses that it needs. And so we see here that Black people, it's actually about 14%. Black people represent about 14% of the US population, but only 2% of the nation's employer businesses, meaning you have at least 2 employees. Only 1% of Black business owners were able to attain a loan in their founding year compared to 7% of white entrepreneurs. Not surprising, because we have less equity, less collateral to put up for a loan. Black entrepreneurs are denied bank loans more than twice as often as our white peers, and when we do get interest loan, we pay higher interest rates. About half of the Black businesses survived the Great Recession, compared to 60% of white-owned firms, and we know that those numbers might worsen because of the PPP loan fiasco. Most Black businesses, or overrepresentation of Black businesses, did not qualify for it. And by the time they got around to providing relief for different types of businesses, many had to close. I'm going to introduce you to Dorian Moorefield. He's the owner of Grandma B's. It's in the Hill District. Here he's holding up a breakfast steak that he's proud of. At the time, when I interviewed him, he asked his customers who had the best breakfast steak in the city, and he held it up, and everybody said, "You do, you do." It's pretty hilarious. But his Yelp ratings are pretty high, 4.64 out of 5. This is a little dated, so there's more reviews. He's consistently a high. He gets high Yelp ratings. But it's in a Black majority neighborhood. In 2010, it was essentially 99% Black. Now it's about 80% Black, and most of the new residents are white. And so, but I wanted to see what people said about the lack of investment in Black businesses. Now, because a lot of people will say, again, it's because of negative reasons, negative assumptions, that the quality is not as good, the service is not as good. So we wanted to look at that. So we looked at business revenue. We got that from Dun & Bradstreet, and we got the race of the owner. But then we scraped all the Yelp data for businesses across the country. And we controlled for neighborhood conditions, so spending power, education, because again, we wanted to get an apples to apples comparison between neighborhoods. And what we found, that Black, Brown, and Asian owned businesses are rated actually higher than their white counterparts. But when you break it down by sector, there's no statistical difference. But in the aggregate, Black, Brown, and Asian businesses are rated higher than their counterparts. But as the neighborhood gets blacker, you get fewer stars and lower reviews. I'll explain. See this magenta circle? That's Black, brown, and Asian businesses. I need to change that title from minority owned to, because, you know, when you're talking about Miami, it's not minority, it's majority. But we need to see, though, that Black, brown, and Asian businesses are all consistently ranked higher than white businesses. But as you can see, as the neighborhood gets blacker, the Yelp ratings go down. But again, Black, brown, Asian businesses continuously show higher ratings. So they also get lower revenue as a result. So what this is also showing is that fewer people are going into neighborhoods that are Black. And it's costing businesses upwards of $4 billion. Highly rated businesses, I should say. Now, there's this saying that Black elders, if you grew up in a Black majority neighborhood, you probably heard a Black elder say this. They would say our ice is just as cold. In some areas of the country, they say our water is just as wet. They knew that if you avoid quality in the hood, you distort the market in a way that forces highly rated businesses to compete with lowly rated businesses. You get less revenue. And it's to the detriment of the communities and to everyone, because you're going to miss out on that Jamaican shop. You're going to miss out on that those services provided in the hood. And that community is going to lose business as a result. Now, how do you counter all this? I have 3 things that I generally tell people that you need to do. You have to invest in people. Let me start by explaining the place part. If you invest only in place, if you invest in brick and mortar and just land, you essentially encourage gentrification because you'll see an increase in property values, and the people won't keep pace. So you need to invest directly into people. So business owners, potential homeowners, current homeowners, you need to invest in the people in Black neighborhoods. And you need to remove the unnecessary bureaucratic barriers into entry, particularly for entrepreneurs to get grants and loans. Now, what the data on business show is that Black, brown, and Asian businesses are just as good as white businesses. So whenever you see a program that requires Black, brown, and Asian folks to jump all these hurdles to do some kind of financial literacy course, say no more programs. Just give me the capital. Again, our ice is just as cold. The businesses, Black, brown, and Asian businesses are just as good. Well, we don't need these classes any more than anyone else. That's the point. But you do need to target investment in places where Black people live, places where brown people live. You need to make targeted infrastructure investments because of the valuation. You have less money going towards the development of those areas. And you need to partner with business and developers to incentivize renovation in those areas. Again, because you have a lack of resources, places do need to be restored. Now, but again, you should not do that at the expense of people. Always work towards people. And then finally, you have got to divest from racism. You got to remove the policies that extract wealth. So you have to get rid of the appraisal practices, get rid of the lending practices, and then once you get rid of those, you install anti-racist policies that encourage inclusion. It's a constant looking at policies that for their extractive properties. And I just wanted to show you just a few stats before we get into a small conversation here. Black people comprise about 14% of the population, as I stated, but Black businesses are only 2.2. So if Black businesses were the equivalent of the Black population, there would be 800 more Black businesses. I mean, that's a boom not only for Black communities, Black entrepreneurs, but for the economy as a whole. So equity is stimulus. We get equity, we get stimulus. Just a few more. If Black businesses increase their average revenue to the total level of non-Black businesses, we would see an increase in revenue by $676 billion. And Black businesses create an average of 10 jobs per firm. Now, if the average employees for a firm increased to 23, which is non-Black businesses, it would add 1.6 million jobs to the economy. And if Black businesses paid as much as non-Black businesses, then those employees would see an increase in pay by approximately $25 billion more in people's pockets. Now, I just want to let you all know about and announce a partnership that we just launched, and they're going to share details of this in the chat. I've partnered with the Ashoka organization. We're going to have a $1 million prize competition for people with ideas around how to solve for devaluation. And so if you're working on housing issues, let us know. They're putting the link in the chat. Let us know, because we want you to participate in this challenge competition. We're looking for policies and market-based solutions. So regulatory things as well as new products. So if you feel that you have a new credit scoring system you want to employ, if you feel that you can create a new mortgage product or a new zoning ordinance, for instance, hey, let us know, participate in this, and we might, and you may get a part of that prize money. We are working with local foundations because I want to try my best to make sure that everyone who's in this gets something, but everyone will get at least enough information out of it, because you'll be working with experts from around the country to put forth the best ideas around devaluation. And finally, you could get a lot of this information in my new book, Know Your Price, Valuing Black Lives and Property in America's Black Cities. Make sure you get your copy. And that is pretty much it for my presentation today, but I'm looking forward to a robust conversation. And so please provide me those questions in the chat. Oh, somebody asked, when was that video taken? That was probably about 1.5 years ago. The appraisal community has done somewhat of a 180 on this, in that they have really started working with us. Before, it was a little bit of a contentious relationship, as you can imagine. But now I think with the unrest of this past summer, more data that has come out, that shocking report in the New York Times that showed the Florida couple that lost approximately $130,000 in value. They've made some changes. And hopefully there were a few people in the organization that simply recognize a time for change. And so we've been working with them since that horrible, I mean, not horrible, but that pretty dramatic hearing. And so I'm looking forward to moving forward. Let's see. Any other questions that you may have? I'm trying to get to this chat. I don't see many questions, but hey, anything you may ask, because I I can let you guys out early if you like. Well, it looks like I don't have many more questions, so I'm actually going to turn it over to Gretchen to close this out. But you can always reach me at Andre Perry EDU on Instagram and Twitter. That's Andre Perry EDU. And you can always get my book, Know Your Price, wherever fine books are sold. So thank you.
If you have time to prepare, there is a question that just came into the chat.
I want to do more work around racial wealth equity, but not sure where to start. Do you have any advice on where to start? Hey, I'd say start with housing and business, because in general, those are the two ways Black and brown people generally make their wealth, meaning assets minus debts, not income. I just want to be clear, we're not talking about income. We're talking about overall net worth. And so I think you start looking at housing and business, and also looking at the wealth extractors in those areas, because there's a lot of people who have assets, but they're devalued. And isn't that a metaphor for life, that we're bringing quality to the table, right? We're just not getting our just due. And so some of this is establishing new businesses and buying homes, but a lot of it is making sure we reap the value of the things that we own currently and remove the wealth extractors in our communities. Now, we have a few more reports that are coming out probably this year on the impact of brown majority communities, but we're kind of seeing the same phenomenon. And so this is an issue that is impacting people of color as a whole, but it's really the anti-Black policies of the past that have been drivers of these disparities for a lot of different people. So, but I would start with housing and examinations of housing and business ownership. Oh, are you concerned about the new wave of technology coming out since the COVID-19 pandemic, with digital systems relating to human labor in so many sectors? How do we ensure racial equity in this new technology advanced economy? Or replacing, yep, I got you, replacing human labor. You know, that's, we do a lot on the future of work. And there is no question society is going to need less labor as a result. So there's a couple of things. One, we should be demanding the resources to get the kind of education to fully participate in this economy. Remember, well, you don't know, maybe you don't know, but the public schools that are predominated by people of color get $23 billion less than their predominantly white counterparts. The reason being is because we fund education based off property taxes. And so so we're getting less funding, and we have less resources to participate in things like coding classes and things like that. And so we need the resources to get the kind of education and training to participate. And we also need federal policy to kick in. Let's be clear, we do need a basic income raise. We do need opportunities for some type of federal job guarantee. That the reality is that we need less sort of rote labor types things, or we need people to do less rote skills, and we need for people to actually be more human. We need folks to work on their creativity, things that don't require a machine. You can't get a machine to do. And so we need to invest in those things that really does make us human. And we deserve the investments towards those things. So some of it is improving educational opportunities. Some of it is making sure we have a federal social contract that really recognizes this moment. We're going to work less. We need for people to go to school more, and we still need Social Security. We need some type of public option for healthcare, some quality educational services. We should not have to pay to go to college. I mean, what's crazy is, remember back in the day when we were farming, it was a basic education was a primary and secondary school because you kind of needed those things to function in society. Now we absolutely need higher education. You can't really make it without some kind of post-secondary option. So basic has transitioned from just primary, secondary to post-secondary. And so why should people pay, particularly given these soaring tuition costs for an education that society needs us to have? And so no one complains that everybody gets financial aid at the primary, secondary level, because that's what it eventually is. Everybody gets financial aid because we all need it. Well, we all need it in the post-secondary environment as well. So I'm a big champion of canceling debt, free college, because that's what's going to be needed in this new economy.
We have last call for questions for Dr. Perry.
Last call for questions. Then you can toast it up. Then you can toast it up after my presentation.
Okay. Well, Dr. Perry, thank you so much. I know that I, for one, am going to go back and look at the slides, especially the one where you make some recommendations about investing in people, not just place. So thank you for those insights and for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Well, I'm looking forward to working with Callis in the future, and keep me on your radar, because look out for some Miami-based studies in the near future.
Oh, good. Okay, great. We would love that.
And get know your price. Make sure you know your price.
Yes, and that has been posted in the chat, I think, twice. Also, for those of you that want to follow Dr. Perry, his various social media handles have been posted. And just to let everybody know, we will, in the next few weeks, be posting to YouTube all of the sessions from the 3-day summit. We've had a lot of requests for the recordings. So once everything gets cleaned up, we will be releasing that, so stay tuned. Ideal has also been posting in the chat a form if you're interested in getting more involved with any of the topics that have been discussed over the last 3 days. Please follow that link. And last but not least, we hope you join us as soon as I'm done talking with a networking hour. On the left-hand side of your screen, you should see a networking tab. It should be fun. So thank you so much for joining us. Everyone at Catalyst Miami is very appreciative of the time and attention, and we will see you soon. Take care.